Perhaps you're curious about your family history and want to learn more about your ancestors. Maybe you're wondering who you inherited your eyesight from. You could be on the hunt for potential relatives you never knew existed. Whatever reason you may have, creating a family tree can be a fun and insightful experience. Not only will you learn more about your family and where you come from, but you also have a tangible and organized way to keep track of your research. As your family tree grows, it will become a valuable resource for future generations, or an heirloom that lasts for long into the future. You can use Flying Logic to quickly create a family tree in an interactive and fun way. Since a family tree makes use of the basic tree structure, the orientation can be changed to suit your preferences. We are using the top to bottom orientation in our example tree, as most family trees are created in this orientation. You could use the left to right orientation, vice versa, or even bottom to top, depending on your situation. However, we recommend you set the bias to wherever your tree stems from. These will be the oldest members of the family you include in your chart. For our example, this means the bias will be set to the top. This will ensure the most clarity while creating a tree. It is also important to ensure that the default junctor setting located in the Operators menu is set to Fuzzy and. Flying Logic organizes family trees by making use of junctors, and because it takes two individuals together to have children, you want to label the junctor and instead of or. The domain and entities you use are also up to you, and will vary depending on your needs. In our example, we use a simple family tree domain, which consists of two entities, male and female. This is based on genetic categorization, which is binary, and not gender identity. If you wish to have additional or alternate categories for any reason, you can create your own domain to personalize your tree to your needs. However, if you wish to use the domain just referenced, you can. The family tree domain is not included in a default Flying Logic 3 document, so there is a bit of a process that needs to happen in order to access it. To begin, use the link in the description to access the example family tree domain. These are created with a family tree domain, so they contain what you need for a new family tree document. You'll be taken to a page with three options for download. Click on the last option, familytree.xlogic, to download an empty document that contains a family tree domain. Open this familytree.xlogic file in Flying Logic, and a new blank document will open with the family tree domain. Now you can begin working on the diagram. There are many reasons for creating a family tree, and each impacts how your tree is created and what information it includes. To illustrate, if you want to create a sentimental tree as a keepsake, you may want to include more members of the family than if you were solely creating a map of genetics being passed down. Similar to a pedigree tree. Some things to determine before beginning your tree are: why are you creating a family tree? Are you mapping a specific trait? The family history? Creating an heirloom? Are you wanting to include multiple families in your tree, such as the families of members who are married into the family? What information do you want to include in your tree? This could include ages, birth or death dates, specific genetics, major accomplishments, relationships, locations, name inheritance, and many more. Researching your family history is usually an essential step to prepare to diagram your tree. If you're planning on creating a complex tree, or if you were planning on simply tracking your ancestry through many generations, you'll end up with a large amount of information to track. It's helpful to already have the information handy while organizing individuals and their relationships. Researching beforehand can also be helpful in finding information to include in entities. For example, You could find the birth and death dates of members of your family to include alongside their names. You could also find notable achievements, locations of their birth and death, their ages, and many more. This can be particularly relative in cases of creating a tree for a family that is not your own, such as a royal family of a country or a significant historical family. This is also the most likely step to discover long-lost family members. If you're looking out for any, pay extra attention to gaps in information and dig deeper. Now you're ready to get into the bulk of creating your tree. There are a few ways to go about this. However, our example covers the most common way of building a family tree, from the oldest members to the youngest. If you're beginning from a different point of reference, you may need to alter the order you add members. First, begin with the eldest members. These will be the people who are as far back along your tree as you've decided to include. Depending on your tree, these could be grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, or even farther back. You can drag and drop these entities onto your canvas to start. At the moment, there is no visual connection between the two, so they'll be floating on the canvas until the next step. Second, add the children of the eldest members. Now you can add the next generation of the members to your tree. These will be the children of the two entities already on the canvas. To add the children to your tree, add an entity as a successor to one of the parents. Then, connect the edge of the other parent to the one connecting the parent and child. This will create a juncture that symbolizes the parent-child relationships. To add siblings, you can drag an entity to that juncture, and it will create a new child edge leading to it. Do this for as many siblings as needed. Third, add the families of the children. When you add a second parent, one who married into the main family, the entity is pushed to wherever the bias is set to, which is why we suggest to have the bias set to wherever the eldest members of the tree are located. Also, it's easiest to add both the parent and the children of a specific familial group at once. To illustrate, when a second parent is added to the canvas without its respective children, the canvas will look like this. As you can see, it's unclear who Jody Baker has children with. To fix this, you must also add the children of the couple, like so. Now, it's clear who's had children with who, and whose children are whose. The catch is that the entities that marry into the family are pushed to the area the bias is set to. There are a few ways to clarify this that we discuss later, but for now it's simpler to leave it as it is. Fourth, continue working down to the youngest members. To continue building the tree, repeat the steps above for however large you want your tree to be. Add the parents of the children, and then the children. Work your way down the generations until you reach the youngest members of your family. Repeating the steps will end up with a family tree that may look similar to this. Note, if you stumble across a strange situation in your family tree, check out the special cases at the end of this video. It includes ways to chart potentially confusing situations. If you have information on anyone who entered into your family's biological tree, you can add those too. Depending on how complex and informative you would like your tree to be, this may be the most helpful when creating a specific trait or genealogy. However, it could hold sentimental value as well. This can also hold a benefit in making the tree easier to read. By adding the members of the family of someone who entered into the main family, you can actually create a situation where a partner would be on the same generational layer as the person they had a child with, or married instead of where the bias pushes them to. However, you need to chart the partner's family as far back as the main family for this to work. Adding the family of an entity who's entered into the main family follows the same steps as creating the first tree. This time, you may want to work backwards, adding their parents, then their grandparents, etc. By the end of this process, you should end up with a tree that looks similar to this. In the example shown, Jason Robinson's family is partway charted, with his father's family being charted enough for Jason Robbins to line up with his partner, Carrie Bard. The cost of generational clarity is the fact that adding so many family branches will create a tree with an abundance of information to read through. This may be a helpful addition to a tree, or it could be a hindrance to others. Due to the nature of biases, your family tree may be looking a little strange, as certain ancestral entities will be all over the place, instead of lined up with their respective age groups. To make your tree easier to interpret, you can group together generations. To do this, you'll want to select all the members of the family that fall into a particular generation. Since the entities are in multiple different locations on the chart, the easiest way to make a selection is to continually hold down Shift while clicking on all the entities for a particular generation. A green outline will appear on any edge, entity, or juncture you select. Press Ctrl-G on Windows or Command-G on a Mac to group all of the selected entities. There are many cases where multiple parents are included in the life of one child. These could include polyamorous relationships, sperm or egg donors, or adoption. When deciding who to include in these situations, it is important to remember what the purpose of your family tree is. If your chart is documenting solely genetic traits, perhaps you only want to include the two people whose genes went into the child. If you're working with a more sentimental tree, you may want to include all of the parents that are a part of the child's life. For example, a children's adoptive and biological parents. You add multiple parents to a tree the same way you would add the usual set of two parents. All of the parents' edges can be combined into a juncture before branching out to the children entities. It may not be clear what's going on when more than two parents are charted. To sidestep this, you can always add clarifying information to your entities. Cases of incest will arise in some trees due to cultural, generational, or other aspects. If you go back far enough on your tree, you will come across a case of incest due to a concept called pedigree collapse. Pedigree collapse is the idea that if you were to track your ancestry in the general mother plus father equal child fashion, you would pool more ancestors than there were people on the planet during that time. It's statistically impossible to have a family tree with no ancestral relationships. So, there may arise a situation in which an ancestral relationship may be charted on a family tree. You chart an ancestral relationship the same way you chart any other relationship, by connecting the two parents into a juncture with children then branching off of it. In this example, there's both a case of incest between siblings and an aunt/nephew relationship. There are other possible pairings, however, they will function in the same way as the ones shown do.